Hi, and welcome to Unstoppable Stories That Move, a podcast with a purpose. Our mission is to raise money for medical research while shining a light on ordinary people who do extraordinary things, from everyday athletes and artists, scientists and survivors, caregivers and changemakers. These people relentlessly pursue their dreams, pushing through pain and setbacks. But why? Why do they do it? And what makes them unstoppable? I'm your host, Sally Hed Dahlquist. You can hear my story in episode 1. And now, stay tuned to listen as these seemingly normal people share their stories of resilience and inspire us to keep moving forward. Let's get to it. Hi, everyone. I'm your host, Sally Hed Dahlquist. So thanks for tuning in today. I am here today with the unstoppable Tom Pedersen. Tom is a lifelong runner and a survivor of 2 very serious medical crises. For Tom, being active has always been a very important part of his life. So running became a part of his identity early in life when he started running in 8th grade and continued throughout 50 years of marriage, 3 kids, his career as a CPA, and well into retirement. But Tom's running story has come to an abrupt stop. In 2017, just 1 year after retiring, Tom had a minor stroke and was told to stop running. But 2 years later, he ran the Berlin Marathon. Then, 6 years after his stroke, Tom had open heart surgery to put in 6 bypasses. During his recovery, he started to run again, and 2 years later, he ran the London Marathon in 2025. And now he is planning to run Tokyo in March 2026. Today, Tom is not the man he used to be, but he's still running. So let's hear from him how he's relearning to trust his body and run again, even if he's not as fast as he used to be. So hi, Tom. Hello. Thanks for being on today.
Hi, Sally. Thanks for having me. I'm doing great. Sitting here in the warm Minnesota cold, trying to stay warm, but cheerful, and it was sunny today, and so that always helps. But it's great to be here.
I'm actually zooming in from our vacation in Crested Butte, Colorado, which is, it's been nice to get away from the Minnesota cold. So it's the end of January 2026. And
is it a little warmer there in Crested Butte?
Yeah. Minnesota has been close to -20, -40.
Yeah.
So I'm really glad we were able to talk today. So thanks for making time for me. So we initially met London Marathon in 2025. My sister Laura was talking to you and your wife Marianne, and discovered that you guys had also lived in Stillwater, the town I was living in too.
Mm-hmm.
And then we reconnected through Mary Croft, who was a guest on the show just a couple weeks ago. And Mary's still running at 80. And she humbly says, oh, her story isn't that interesting. You know, she's not as unstoppable as you are.
Well, I don't know. Mary's certainly a hero of mine. She's run a couple of 100 marathons or more, and the most unassuming person you'd ever want to meet. She's just great. And I'm sure that came through in your interview.
Yes, she is amazing. She's my hero. I want to be her when I'm 80.
Oh, don't you know it?
So tell me, what are your stats? I know you've run a couple of marathons, a bunch of halves, and
Yeah.
What's your running life?
I ran after I got out of college, I started running for mental health. I had a kind of a stressful job, and found that running was a great way to just let it all go and keep my sanity. And I ran on and off, just a few miles at a time, but it's that's all it takes really is, to make a difference to you physically. And so I ran 5 and 10 Ks, until after I have 3 kids, and after they grew up a bit, I had it on my bucket list to run a marathon. So it was 1993. I was 41 years old, and I had a friend that I knew through being a scout leader, and Wayne Munson was his name, and he had run a couple of marathons before, and we talked about it, and we decided, hey, let's train together and run Twin Cities. So we did, and took a lot of training. We ran on the newly opened Gateway Trail outside of Stillwater. It was an old railroad bed and that had been paved and was a wonderful training spot. And that fall, early October, we ran Twin Cities, and it was kind of in the back of my mind. I was hoping I could, and I was hoping for 3.5 hours or so, and I just made the 3 hours.
Wow.
It was the fastest marathon I've ever run. Yeah, I wished I'd had some experience because I don't know what might have done had I kept at it. But my kids were little, and the amount of time that it took me to train, I thought I can't deny that time to my kids. And so it was almost I think it was 12, 13 years later when I ran my second marathon. But I kind of took off from there, and I think Tokyo will be number 25 for me. So I don't run a huge number of them, but once I started again in the early 2000s, I would run one, two, maybe three in a year, and that's where it's gotten me today.
Yeah, a lot of parents find that it's really hard to get the training in when you have little kids.
For sure, for sure. So yeah, the second marathon I ran was in 2006. That was Grandma's up in Duluth, and I had been running. I discovered this running group in Stillwater. I had heard of them for a few years. Very informal group, would meet at the tennis courts out on West Myrtle Street, if any of your listeners know Stillwater. And we would run 5 miles out and around, and it was just a real nice group. There's no rules, no dues or anything. Just show up at the tennis courts at 7 o'clock on Saturday morning and run the 5 miles. And I made some of the fastest friends including Mary Croft, but people I still am tight with today. Ran with them for a few years, and finally they encouraged me and decided I'm going to run Grandma's. So it was 2006, the year after my youngest child graduated from high school. And to my astonishment, I ran a pretty good time there and qualified for Boston. So
Wow.
yeah, that's what I thought. Wow. So the following year, I ran 3 marathons. I did Grandma's again, and I did Boston. Actually, the Boston was first in April, then Grandma's in June, and Twin Cities in the fall. And that was kind of a grind. I didn't keep up the three, pace the following year. I ran one the following year, and one or two afterwards. And but Boston was a wonderful experience too. The weather was crappy, and I had a terrible time, but it was like it's like going to Mecca for runners. It was just a fun experience, even in the cold drizzle and actually it was a nor'easter that they had that year.
No.
So it was there was a big stiff wind coming out of the northeast through the whole thing, but just a great experience.
Yeah, I'd love to do that someday. That's on my
Hmm.
bucket list.
Oh, for sure.
But that's also part of the 6-star majors, which is now 7 stars, right?
It is. That's right.
Yeah.
And
So
my awareness of that didn't come till years later. But run the Twin Cities marathons about I think 8 times I counted.
mhm.
But with the group, we went and did Chicago one year, and I had put in for New York in the lottery, and I missed out. I had missed out 2 times, and at that point, their policy was if you've been denied twice, you get in for sure the third time. So I got
Mhm.
in for the third time at New York, and golly, New York was an awesome experience. The
Mhm.
crowds were fabulous, and there's bands all over the place, and the cheers of the crowds was just incessant. And as all kinds of marathons, you've got the little kids with their hands out for high fives and slaps as you go by, and I just find that so energizing. It's part of what makes a marathon just a wonderful experience.
Yeah, I ran 23, and even though I'd already run how many, well over 100 marathons, that was the
Yeah.
one marathon where my sister Laura actually came out
Hmm.
to see me, because she
Uh-huh.
had some other things going on, and so she saw me at mile 7. So that was really
Hmm.
fun. And then when,
So that would have been in Brooklyn.
yeah, and you run through all the different boroughs, all the different parts of
Oh
the
yeah.
city.
Yeah.
And I had this hat on, the Statue of Liberty hat with the green
Oh
crowns on
sure.
it, so people
Yeah.
could see it. So then when I did London, she came with for that too, and I wore the same hat, and I'm wearing that same hat for.
For Tokyo. Uh-huh. Cool.
So it just kind of New York just reminded me. It was fun to kind of start that with my sister that she's come out to see me twice now.
Yeah, for sure. for sure. I was able to bring my wife and my daughter and her then fiance along. So we stayed in an Airbnb in Brooklyn, and that was, I mean, that was a eye-rolling comical disaster of a nasty place to stay. And I visited with a college friend the night before the marathon and got home about, I think it was like 2 a.m. So I had almost no sleep. I got a couple hours of sleep
Yeah.
in an uncomfortable bed and turned around and had to get up and take the subway over to Battery Park and get the ferry to Staten Island and all that. So I had
Hmm.
almost no sleep. And to my amazement, I still was able to just break 4 hours, which was my goal. And the enthusiasm again of the crowds just made it an unforgettable event. And always treasure the memory.
Yeah, that's what I thought too. Like every step of the way, well, except for some of the
Yeah.
bridges, there was
Hmm.
somebody there shouting at you.
Oh
Did
yeah.
you watch
No.
this? There was a movie a couple years ago called Brittany Runs a Marathon. Have you
No.
watched that?
No.
It's
I have
on
to see
Netflix.
that. Uh-huh.
It's just a silly, fun movie about this girl who's kind of depressed about her life and decides she's going to run the New York Marathon.
Hmm.
And you're a regular average girl, and she does it.
Cool.
Kind of shows the excitement of the crowd.
I think long distance running, even that's a long distance running is just wonderful therapy for whatever it is that ails you.
Hmm.
It forces you to take your mind off of what's going on and chill.
Yes.
Um, so we were talking though about the majors. I realized then after New York and Chicago, hey, I've got three of these majors out of the way. I became aware of them, and so I think I did Chicago and New York in 13 and 14. I retired in 2016 and, ended up having a stroke in 2017. And that was one of my unstoppable moments, but ran Berlin in 2019, and then London last year and Tokyo coming up in a few weeks. I'm really, really happy and grateful to be at a point where I can complete the six majors.
Yeah. So now they added Sydney as a
They
seventh
have.
major. So do people have to run that one?
No, because they're going to give you, they're allowing people to complete six and get the big, they got a big tacky medal
Yeah.
for you when you complete it, and it's almost like a piece of armor for your chest or something. It's just really, really big. But if you started when it was six, they're allowing you to finish with six, and that's where I'm at. Who knows? I may do Sydney. My daughter and her family just moved to Australia this year, and so maybe that's up in the future sometime.
That's exciting. And then they're talking about adding two for
A
the
couple
majors for
more,
the
I
big
think.
ones.
Cape Town, I
Yeah,
believe,
that's what I've
and
heard.
I heard Singapore, but I'm not sure Singapore has actually made the cut yet. So I don't know
Hmm.
what the other one is if it isn't Singapore.
Yeah, I started when it was still six. So
Hmm. So maybe you can do the same thing if gets to
mm,
that. I,
yeah, I'm doing Tokyo too this year.
Yeah, I hope we can manage to meet up someplace.
Yeah, we'll have to figure that out because you're going with marathon tours, right?
I am.
Yeah, I
Maybe
love
we
them.
can have you crash one of their receptions or something.
They do frown upon that. I can loiter around in the lobby and you can come out
Uh-huh.
and chat with me.
Well, maybe
Um,
we do that.
yeah. I do love their parties though.
Uh-huh.
But I put my name in the lottery and I got in.
That's fantastic. I considered that and then just dismissed it right away. I thought, the odds are really against you in that lottery, from what
Yeah.
I understand. So I
Yeah.
don't know. I've gotten lucky before though. When we went to Chicago, a friend, Candy Patron from Stillwater,
Mhm.
she wrote a letter to the people at the Chicago Marathon saying, "Hey, there are six of us in our running group that would really like to run this marathon if we can all get in." And she got notification back that we were all let in.
Wow.
Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah, we were all pretty surprised and glad she had taken the initiative to do that.
Hmm. Maybe I should become friends with her.
Yeah, for sure.
So I still have to run, well, Tokyo, but then Boston and Chicago.
Well, Chicago was fun. It was a hot day, but like New York, they run through all these neighborhoods that I really didn't know existed before, and I am from Michigan originally, so we've driven from Minneapolis to or the Twin Cities to Michigan many, many, many times over the years, and
Mm-hmm.
felt like I've got a pretty good grasp of Chicago, at least from the perspective of the freeway going through and a couple of stops in between. But it was really fun to experience the neighborhoods up close, like you do when you're running the streets. Great crowds there as well.
Yeah, I think that's one thing that people seem to really like about the marathon events, even the walking events, is that you get to see these neighborhoods up close and personal.
For sure. Yeah, the World Majors are it's sponsored by Abbott, which is a medical
They're a pharmaceutical company.
pharmaceutical. So Abbott has sponsored the World Marathon Majors, and it started out as five of them. It was London and Berlin, along with Boston, New York, and Chicago. And a handful of years ago, Japan, Tokyo got added on. So there are six World Marathon Majors. And when I started my quest, probably, I think in seriousness, 6, 7 years ago when I ran Berlin, it was the sixth World Marathon Majors. So you run all six of those marathons, and you get a special medallion then in recognition for having accomplished it. And since I started now, they've added a seventh, Sydney. And fortunately, I don't have to run the seventh to get my World Majors accomplishment. And there's also talk that there's going to be maybe an eighth or a ninth happening, but I'll be very happy to have six under my belt, and we'll see what happens after that.
Mm-hmm. So if we get our medal for finishing the sixth, and then let's say we go into
Is this your
Sydney.
sixth as well?
No, it's my fourth.
Okay.
Yeah, it's my fourth. New York, London, Berlin, and this will be Tokyo.
We need Chicago and Boston then.
Chicago, Boston, and then Sydney. Yeah.
Oh, and Sydney will be the seventh then.
Sydney will be 7. So I was wondering, okay, so I can finish my 6 now because I already started. But if I finish my 6 and then I get my 6-star medal, and then let's say I add Sydney, are they going to give me another 7-star
I'm wondering
medal?
about that. I'll have to find that out in the course of the next month here.
Because how many people are going to have the 6-star medals, right?
That's a good question. I don't know.
Like how many people have the 5-star medals? So now they aren't giving those out anymore.
Right,
then you're getting 6.
not.
Then the 6 are going to be obsolete. Then you have to get the 7. And then who knows when they add 8 or 9, the medal's going to be huge.
Right. Yeah, no, I saw a guy in London last year who had the 6. As I was, walking from the finish line toward my hotel, I bumped into a guy from Japan, as a matter of fact, and he had this big flashy medal with kind of silvery around his neck, along with the London medal, and that was his 6th major, and so I got a picture of him, and it's pretty cool. Before I ended up running the Berlin Marathon, though, I had a stroke, and I think we wanted to talk a little bit about that. I was a year retired, and I was teaching adjunct at the time. So they told me when I was teaching that as I was approaching retirement age, you'll know when you're ready to go. And so fall of, I guess it was 2015, I thought, I think I'm ready. And so you got to give them a lot of notice. I had to tell them the first of the year that I was going to retire, at the end of May.
What subject were you teaching?
I taught accounting and various business courses at a little technical school in Richmond, Wisconsin. It was called Wisconsin Indian Head Technical College, and they rebranded a few years ago, and now it's called Northwood Tech. So I was half of the accounting department. And,
one of 2.
That's right. And it was a wonderful experience. I started there in 1990, and it was a wonderful way to a wonderful way to step off the fast track and work in a career where you got to interact with a lot of nice people and feel like you're helping people out. And it was real nice as a parent to have a career that didn't demand 110% of my time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I taught for 26 years and retired in 2016. And then going on from that, though, I taught adjunct for another year, which is about, essentially part-time. And
Hmm.
in the process of doing that, it kind of magnified for me why I wanted to retire in the first place. So
Yeah.
that following spring, when the adjunct was over, or the adjunctship, if you will, I went to Detroit to visit my mom, who was recuperating in a rehab facility from having her second hip replaced. In the process of visiting there, I stayed at her house, which was empty. She was in rehab. In the morning, I went out and swam at the Y near there, and coming out, I just felt kind of funky and crappy, and noticed my foot was dragging a little bit, and what's that all
Oh.
about? And so we visited, and I visited with a brother, had lunch with him, and I just still felt kind of crappy, and I thought, if my wife was here, she'd drag me into the doctor, but I said, I don't know any docs around here. I said, I'm just going to go home. So I got in the car and I drove home, 11 hour drive, and got home at midnight on Saturday night. Sunday morning, we were sitting reading in the living room, and my wife says, "Your face is drooping." And I said,
Oh.
"Oh, shoot, really?" I kind of thought it might have been looking in the rearview mirror on the way home. So
Yeah.
she says, "Let's call a doc." And so we called a nurse, and they said, "Get in here." So
Yeah.
I went to the stroke unit at Regents Hospital, and they kept me overnight. And I had a minor stroke, and oh boy, so they did all kinds of testing and stuff, and determined it was something called an ischemic stroke.
Yep.
And they said one of the things they said, you're going to be taking a statin. You really need to have a primary care doc. And I had one, and then he left for another practice and stuff. So I had to go looking for a doc. And I thought,
Hmm.
if I got to have a primary care doc, I want to look for somebody who is active himself or herself and can,
Hmm.
kind of appreciate me and my lifestyle and support me. So I did some
Yeah.
research and was looking through bios of doctors, and this one fellow came up and said he was a soccer player from South America or something. Okay, this looks cool. So I went in for a visit, made an appointment, and went in, and we talked. And I said to him, "I understand you've been a soccer player." And he says, "Yeah, I don't get to do that anymore." And I noticed he was not in great shape either. Kind of
Hmm.
middle aged and looking it.
Yeah.
But in the process of our discussion too, he evaluated me and all, and I said, I really, I've run marathons and I want to keep doing that. And he says, "Oh, you really shouldn't. I don't want you to run marathons anymore.
Oh.
Maybe halves or something."
Yeah.
And I was, yeah, not happy to hear that. And, I kind of went home and slept on it. And I thought, you know what? That's not the doctor I want to have. So I went
Yeah.
back out and looked at bios again. I found another doc who also had soccer in his bio, and
Hmm.
went to visit him over in a different office in St. Paul. And he looked like he had played soccer the day before yesterday. Um, you
No.
know, nice younger guy. When you're my age, you want somebody who's young and isn't going to retire soon for your doc.
Yes.
And I explained my situation, and I said I'm looking for somebody who's going to support me being as active as I want to be, including running marathons. And he said, "Yeah," he says, I can identify and relate to that, and I'm more than happy to take you on as a patient." And I'm really thankful that I had
Hmm.
stuck to it and found another doc.
Hmm.
Few weeks after that, too, though, I had an appointment with a neurologist for some follow-up work on the stroke. And the neurologist had me in the office and sat me on a couch facing a huge TV screen. And he pulled up the brain scans that they had done, and it was kind of cool. They showed the little blockages deep in the brain, and
Yeah.
I told me all kinds of stuff that was way over my pay grade, and so I don't remember too much.
Well, I know an ischemic stroke. Ischemia means lack of oxygen.
Hmm. It was also like a bit of a blockage from plaque and stuff, so it wasn't something that could be undone by the clot buster,
Hmm.
so there was this little tight little knot way deep down inside. And but I said to the guy, this guy was oh, he was probably about 40-ish. He looked like he's in pretty good shape himself. But I said to him, I like to, I'm a runner. And I said, what do you think if if I continue running? And I said, in fact, I ran the Go for the Badger half marathon last weekend, which I had. And he kind of looked at me and smirked, and I, kind of wondered what's so funny. He says, I ran my first half marathon at Grandma's this summer. And
Oh,
turns out, he said, you ran faster than I did.
oh. And this was after you had your stroke? You did the Go for the Badger?
It was. Yeah, this was the neurologist who was, evaluating. Oh, but yeah, the Grandma's was after the stroke.
Yep.
The stroke was in, May, and Go for the Badger is the first or second weekend in August. So, no, I had gone out and started running again anyways. And yeah, he smirked and he says, you know what? He says, that's the best thing you can do. And he also told me going forward, there's two things critical to preventing another stroke. He says, your cholesterol and your blood pressure. And he says, by far the most important was, and I was waiting for him to say cholesterol. He said, the most important one is your blood pressure. I went, oh,
Okay.
wow, good to know. So I was on a blood pressure med along with a statin for the years in between the stroke and the heart bypass surgery. And anytime I go running, if my blood pressure is high beforehand, there's immediate help from a run. And so my blood pressure will drop 20, 30 points from before to after doing a run. And so I think my running has been probably the more effective blood pressure medication that I've experienced, or blood pressure therapy, let's call it.
And you were taking a statin too?
Yes. Yeah. They, at the beginning, right after from the hospital, they loaded me up with statins, and then we tapered it off considerably.
And statins are meant to lower cholesterol.
Correct. So anyways, that was kind of my experience. In fact, another thought, the following year, some of our running group decided to go to a marathon in Utah, the Big Cottonwood Marathon.
Yeah, I did that one.
Did you? Fantastic.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, we did. We talked about that the other day when on the phone. And man, that was a beautiful, beautiful setting. You start way up in the pass in the mountains, and it's a treacherous descent the first few miles. But the Big Cottonwood descends an entire mile over the 26.2 mile course of the marathon. It was an interesting experience, and I was so gratified by the end of it. I had a really good race. I ended up qualifying for Boston again had I wanted to go, but I'd been a couple times already, so no thanks. But my goals going into it, though, were to break 4 hours if I could, and to maybe qualify for Boston. So I did that, and I also ended up winning my age group. So I was 66 or 7 or something at the time. I was so proud and felt great. And my wife snapped a picture at the finish line. And so I had some prints made of that, and I sent a couple of copies to the neurologist and to my primary care doc, and I thanking them both for their support. My primary, I've never seen the neurologist again. I hope he got a smile out of that, but my primary care doc, said thank me the next time it came in. He said he really got a kick out of that picture. Well, I felt unstoppable, I guess, at that point.
Yeah, I was gonna say, at that point, did you feel like you had kind of recovered? Like, did you feel like, okay?
Oh, I think so. Yeah, that was the first. I believe that was with the first marathon I ran after after the stroke.
And you were fast and feeling good.
Yeah. 2018, September 8th, and it was a Boston qualifier and first my age group, and 3 hours 58 minutes.
Wow.
And, so I was pretty happy with that.
I think I ran it like in 2016 or so, a little bit, a few years before that. Yeah, and it was just beautiful. Like you said, you start on the top of Big Cottonwood Canyon, which is a solitude ski resort, and you go down like 17 or 19 miles, end up on the valley floor of Salt Lake. And for me, we ran through the industrial park, and you said the course was a lot prettier when you did it.
Yeah, well, I don't know if they changed it or what, but we got down to about mile, I don't know, in the late teens, 18-ish, give or take.
Mm-hmm.
And it took a hard right turn and went out and back for about 5 or 6 miles. And it was flat.
Okay.
And doing flat after coming downhill all those miles, it felt like you were going uphill. And so it was a real discouraging part of the race, but you just had to plug away, and then you got done with that out and back, and
Yeah.
turned hard right again, and you were heading back downhill again toward the end
Mm-hmm.
in the Salt Lake Valley,
Yeah.
and so it was nice to have those last few miles being downhill again. It was the wind at your back sort of a thing.
Yeah. Did you taper off both the statins and the blood pressure medications?
Well, yeah, actually, I tapered down on the blood pressure. Well, and both of them, the statins to about, I forget if it was 10 or 20 milligrams. They had started me at 80. And I think that's a technique that they do, though, is they give you a cannon blast of statin
Yeah.
after a stroke and then try to get you down to a happy medium somewhere.
Yeah.
And for the blood pressure too, I bought a cuff and was kind of anal about checking my blood pressure all the time, but it all seemed
Mm-hmm.
to work.
Were they concerned about blood clots in the brain too?
Didn't seem to be, no, no, not at all. So I ran a couple more marathons and stuff, and yeah, Berlin we talked about, I think in 2019. That was kind of fun. That was with 42,000 people or so. We
Yeah.
started in the Tier Garden, which I hadn't heard of, but it's in the shadow of the Brandenburg Gate, and you run all
Yep. The
around the
zoo.
city there. Yeah, yeah.
Yep.
And the way they had it organized was just very impressive. I got there, I was running just a titch late, and the very end of my wave was gone, and the
Wow.
next one was coming up. They had a tape and a whole horde of people, behind it, and they were just sort of walking up toward the start line. And my bib had the wave that I was supposed to be on, and so the race officials just swept me along. Said, "Get going," So I
Yeah.
stayed ahead of the that next wave and took off. But very fun experience. Oh, and my goal in that Berlin marathon was to break 4 hours, and
Hmm.
that was kind of where I was for several years around the 4 hour mark, and it was kind of a crappy day and a little drizzly, but it wasn't bad for running. But at about mile 20, I'm trotting along and I see this guy ahead of me with a pineapple on his head. I'm like, what? And I don't know if you've heard of this guy or not.
No.
I had never seen anything quite like that. So I slowed down and got my camera out and took a picture of him from behind.
Hmm.
So now I went in prepping for our talk here. I Googled him, marathon guy or pineapple guy marathon,
Hmm.
and this is an Israeli guy, and He started about 2019, so it was probably one of his first marathons. But he runs with a pineapple on his head, and I thought that for sure it had to be glued, but he doesn't. There's a YouTube video that shows him practicing his running with balancing that thing on his head. And so he's got an interesting gait because he's got to have that head of his staying just smooth as can be. And
Yeah.
so, anyways, my time at Berlin was 4 hours flat and 35 seconds. And
Yeah.
so I'm blaming him for the fact that I didn't get under 4 hours.
Yeah. That
But
extra 35 seconds. I believe
that's
that.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but anyway, I still laugh when I think of that guy and showing a lot of people his picture. It was just a real funny thing.
It's
Um,
amazing all the fun costumes that you see
for
and
sure.
things that stand out. Yeah,
You know,
I'll have to look him up. That sounds pretty cool.
yeah. So then a couple years later, we did the Jack and Jill Marathon, and that one's out east of Seattle.
Hmm.
And you start up in a pass there. You take the interstate. I think it's 90 or 94
Hmm.
interstate up into a pass, and you start there, and immediately, like within a few hundred yards, you go into a railroad tunnel, and the tunnel is
Yeah.
about, mile and a half, 2 miles long. And it's
Mhm.
dark in there. So they tell you, you got to bring a headlamp and stuff. And so we started off early in the morning. Again, this was our running club. Sent, I don't know, there were 8 of us, I think, maybe 10 of us that
Mhm.
ran this thing. But we started off, it was a beautiful morning in late July. And we're all standing out there posing for pictures and stuff. And then the marathon starts, and we go into the tunnel, and man, it was dark in there. And
Yeah.
I had a couple of flashlights and stuff, and I got 2/3 of the way through and realized, you know what? It probably isn't quite so dark if you take your sunglasses off. So,
Yeah.
so I took my sunglasses off, and yeah, it was a whole lot easier to see with my flashlights and stuff. But we got through that, and the scenery for the rest of that was just magnificent. This again is on a railroad grade, and so it just weaves back and forth down this pass. It wasn't
Mhm.
quite so steep a drop as the Cottonwood, so it only
Mhm.
dropped maybe 3,000 feet over the course of it.
I think there's a couple of different courses or a couple of different races that run on that same course through that tunnel. I'm going to do it someday, someday.
Yeah, I did the following year. We went out again, and I did the half, and
Mhm.
the half starts at the halfway point, I guess, which is kind of logical, but you don't get to run through the tunnel
Yeah.
again. But it's the scenery, though. I just can't. I can't describe it well. It's so beautiful.
Yeah, I love the tunnels. They're really
Hmm.
fun.
No,
So after your stroke, it sounds like you kind of felt like you made a full recovery. You were getting
I
into
did.
more
Yeah.
races.
And then as 2022 and 23 rolled around, I started feeling like I didn't have the mojo a lot.
Yeah.
So I'd go out and start running. One of my favorite places to run here in the Twin Cities is the River Road between the border between Minneapolis and St. Paul. And
Yeah.
so it's a 10K run around. If you start, people local here will understand, from the Ford Bridge up to the Lake Street Marshall Bridge, back down the other side. That loop there is about 6 miles.
Yeah. For people who have ever run the Twin Cities Marathon, he's running basically mile 15 at Minnehaha Park up the river. And then you go over across to the St. Paul side and down through like mile 20, 21,
About
22
mile
or something.
19, 20,
Yeah.
thereabouts.
So mile 19, you're
Right.
crossing the bridge and then you go down. So it's
Yeah.
of the Twin Cities Marathon.
Once you hit St. Thomas, the courses diverge. The Twin Cities Marathon goes down Summit Avenue, and the Gatton Gear follows the River Road back down to the
Yeah.
Ford Bridge. Yeah.
Yeah. I love that river road.
So,
It's part of the
mhm.
Mississippi.
It is, yeah. Just a beautiful place. I've run that for, as long as my whole adult life, I guess. We came to the cities in '76, right out of college, and I discovered that before too many years.
Mm-hmm.
But anyways, I had paid for the half at Grandma's Marathon in 22, and I just I couldn't muster enough mojo to get out and train for it. So my
Oh.
my my dear wife rides her bike with me when I go on long runs, and we went
Mm-hmm.
on a run where I was running quarter mile, and I had to stop and walk. She said, "What's the matter?" I said, "I just don't have it in me. I don't know. It
Yeah.
didn't. My heart. I didn't have any angina pain or anything like that, but I just felt like I had to stop. I just didn't have the energy." And so I
Mm-hmm.
would stop and go like that, and it became pretty clear, you're not going to run a half marathon this year.
Wow.
Recovered enough, and I ran the down in Austin, Texas, in January of 23, the 3M Austin Half Marathon.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, for some reason that went okay. And then, but again, as 23 wore on, I was just kind of shot. So my wife Marianne said, you got to go get a stress test or something. And we talked to the doc, and scheduled a cardio stress test. And I went in middle of July in 23, and they hook you all up. For anybody who hasn't been through that, they hook you up with wires and stuff, and they explained to me, have you go on a treadmill to, get good and sweaty and to the point where you think you've had enough, or we tell you. And then sit down. When you're done, sit down, and we're going to run the tests and stuff and see how you do. So I got on the treadmill and I got going, and I thought I'm going pretty good. And it got to a point I said, okay, I think I'm done. And I was thinking, I hope it gave you enough oomph to do the readings and stuff. So I sat down on the bench, and they did whatever readings, and so soon a doc whom I had not seen before comes out from behind a wall. He was doing the monitoring or stuff, and I said, oh, how did I do? And she says, you did not do well. You're in a bad way. You need to go to the ER. I go,
Wow.
what? And I laughed. You're kidding me. Come on. And but I did. I went to the ER. She says, you can go to the ER now. I said, oh, I should go get my wife because we've only got one car and I've got it here. He says, well, if you leave, you could come back. You've got to sit with the teeming masses waiting to get into the ER. She says, if we take you now, we take you down in the wheelchair and you're in there like now.
Yeah.
So I called my wife and I said, get an Uber down here, and I'm going in the ER. And so she showed up, and I spent the night there, and they came back with test results and all, and said, you've got 5 major blockages. And Mary Ann says, was one of them a widowmaker? And they said they're all a widowmaker.
Wow.
So we talked to a surgeon there and ended up, long story short, going down to the Mayo Clinic. And on August 1st, I had the open heart surgery. And they ended up doing 6 bypasses. I don't know exactly how 5 became 6, but I had a doctor from Chile who they told me, an expert in doing complex heart surgery. And, so I woke up with tubes coming out of my, I had 4 drainage tubes coming out of my abdomen, and another drainage tube draining my incision on the front, and catheter and a breathing tube and all kinds of stuff. And the next day they had me up walking, though. I don't know, I wasn't real steady or anything, but I thought we got to do this. In fact, the evening before, we spent the day before the surgery at Mayo doing tests and stuff, and met with the surgeon in the afternoon, late in the afternoon. And after explaining it all, he says, do you want to go through with this? And I said, yes, let's get this over with. I want it behind me. And I had no regrets. Spent a week in the hospital, and I got checked out and came home, and my own bed at home never felt so good. Because all the wires and machines and noises and stuff, I couldn't sleep well at all.
Yeah, they always hook the monitors up.
So I would roll over and I would squeeze a tube or something, and an alarm would go off. It was like torture trying to get through the night.
Yeah, those monitors are working.
They are. And so, I can't complain. I'm, here I am 2.5 years later, and feeling well. And so, no, I'm nothing but grateful. And in fact, there was another thing I realized during that ordeal, that I determined I wanted to be grateful for every day that I had. And I've tried to do that.
So what are you grateful for today?
I'm grateful for my good health, for being able to do something like this, share my experience with people. And if I motivate somebody, I'd be so happy to know that.
Yeah. And can you describe your symptoms again? Because a lot of people out there, they'll dismiss their symptoms. And I was wondering if, as a runner, if maybe were you a little more in tune to your body? Like, it sounds like you didn't have major like arm pain, or you said you didn't have angina.
None of that, right?
And so didn't quite feel right.
Yeah, and I thought about that in hindsight, Sally. Think that I learned back in high school not to push myself past a certain point. I had the summer before I was a senior in high school, I went to a relay race with a friend of mine who, maybe you've heard of Doug Curtis, the great Doug Curtis, who's run 200
Mhm.
marathons under 3 hours in his
No.
lifetime. But we were high school buddies,
Okay.
and we ran this relay though, and I had sprained my ankle a bit. It was kind of sore, and it was about a 5 mile relay, and you would run a quarter mile each and hand off a baton. And I was determined I wasn't going to let him down, and I was going to finish this thing if it killed me. And well, it darn near killed me. I ended up going to the doctor, and then had a sprained ankle, and the doctor says you got to let this thing heal. And he told me I had to lay off for, I forget if it was 6 weeks or something. And I was just devastated because it was,
Mhm.
a month before my senior year of running cross country. And oh, I guess I knew then that I was a runner because I was sobbing. I was so disappointed.
I love that. For a lot of people, gym class is just torture,
Yeah.
and they use running as punishment. But for
Uh-huh.
you, you knew it felt good and it was something
For
to do
sure.
well, and it
Yeah.
made you sad that was a big part of your identity, right?
Exactly. Exactly. So, yeah, no, I guess maybe I can look at that as becoming unstoppable after that. I knew that,
Yeah.
you can't push yourself too hard or you're going to have to stop. I guess I've had aches and pains and joints and different things, but I've done physical therapy for, my lower back and hips and knees and all that over the years. And, it's done well.
Hmm. You said you have a couple brothers, and did you have a family history?
Yeah, I do. I'm the only runner in my immediate family. I've got three brothers and two sisters.
Hmm.
One of my sisters was fairly athletic, and she did through discus in high school. But she's about 10 years my junior. So
Hmm.
I was gone and into to the Twin Cities by the time she was in high school. So sadly, I didn't get to watch her much. But the rest of my family, at least the male side of my family, has been kind of fraught with heart problems and things. My mom's dad died of an aortic aneurysm at age 55 when I was a little
Hmm.
kid. My own dad had his first heart attack at age 43. My dad
Wow.
was, yeah, and then he had an aneurysm and a stroke and all, and he stroked out his last stroke at age 53. And, so I lived through my mid 50s with what I thought was, I don't know, a target on my back or something. And it just felt good to make it into my late 50s and realize, okay, I survived.
Yeah, I hear a lot of guys compare themselves with their dads. When their dad passes away, they'll go, "Oh, yeah, my
Yeah.
died at 56 and I made it.
Hmm.
I'm
Hmm.
56. I'm past that." And sounds like with
Yeah.
you, it was 53. Yeah, because
Yeah.
the median age for a heart attack in a guy is 65, and for women, it's 72. But
Wow.
increasingly, heart attacks are happening younger men. Like, seem like 1 in 5 are under age 64.
Uh-huh.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
So,
You hear people real young, but those are clearly outliers. Then.
well, there's a big difference between average and median
Oh,
in
that's true.
in the population kind of math.
No, for sure.
The math works that if you do an average, always gets pulled lower. So you have
Yep.
to kind of do the median of 50% of the people below age 64, and 50% of the people were above age 64.
Hmm.
That's where statistics can be manipulated.
I took beginning statistics three times.
Oh, yeah.
And I was an econ major as an undergrad. And so, yeah, so I know statistics pretty well.
Oh, so what are you doing today now? So you said, you've been retired. What's your retirement gig? I know you do some volunteering.
Sure. Yeah, I do taxes with ARC every year. And I've been a tax volunteer since I got out of college, essentially. There's a non-ARC program called VITA, Volunteer Income Tax Assistance. I've volunteered with that. We had a group at the school I taught at. We had a VITA group there. And so for the 26 years I taught, we had a VITA chapter on our campus. And then after I retired, I continued on with the ARP group to do the same thing. But you train a little through the fall, not a little, you train plenty through the fall. And, and then tomorrow is our first tax session. That we're open to the public and filing returns. But it's a free tax service, so people can come in and have their tax returns filed electronically for free. Since it's from ARC, it used to be a focus on the elderly, but it's just now it's returns that are simple enough and within scope that we can do them and do a good job. So if somebody's got a very complex return, we don't do it. It's out of scope, we'll say, and then we'll have to send them to a paid preparer.
Wow. So I know I had heard of volunteer tax preparers, and this episode is going to air in the spring of 2026 before tax season. I'm sure a lot of people need to know about this. So
sure,
tell me more.
You can go to the
what's the website?
You can Google free tax help, and there are a couple of places you might go. VITA is one, VITA, Volunteer Income Tax Assistance. There's an organization in the Twin Cities called Accountability Minnesota that runs a whole bunch of VITA sites around the Twin Cities. My involvement is with an ARP group out of the Hudson, Wisconsin area. And so and kind of backing up, I'm getting ahead of myself. The ARP sites also can be found from Googling free tax help. So the ARP group that I'm with is out of Hudson, and we have prep sites in River Falls and Baldwin and Richmond and Ellsworth, as well as Hudson.
Are there programs like this all over the country?
Definitely, yeah.
Yeah. So if if anybody's having trouble with your taxes, you can get some free help.
Or if anybody's interested in being a volunteer.
Yes.
If you like, if you like to dig into putsy stuff, taxes are a real good place to go.
Yeah, and so many retired people have these amazing skills, like you do, being a CPA and a teacher of certified public accounting.
And there are people, though, in our group who have had careers or not careers, doing everything else from soup to nuts. So you don't need to be an accountant. You don't need to have a technical background or anything. It's just to be somebody who's interested in detail. You can keep track of a little detail and stuff. We prepare the returns on software, and it gets electronically filed. And it's a pretty neat process.
And people are always so relieved to get that done.
Oh, they sure are. People are so appreciative. Of that service. So it's really fun to participate in it.
I kind of want to make there's got to be a little joke in there that God kept you around to help people prepare their taxes.
Probably so.
That service is priceless.
I haven't done enough good work in the world yet, so I got to stick around for a while.
You got to stick around, keep volunteering.
That's right.
That's great. Knowing your dad's history and some of your family, did that also motivate you to stay healthy?
Oh yeah, sure. My dad, my dad smoked. He looked to be a real healthy guy, and he played, like his generation. He bowled and he played golf and he played softball. He wasn't overweight, but he smoked a lot, and he was a real kind of a high stress guy. He pushed and he was a salesman, did well. He bought his own business in the last few years of his life, and he knew how to hold a grudge. I think that hurt him. I think that helped kill him, honestly.
Oh, yeah.
Contributing to high blood pressure and stress and the like. And but maybe that's my own personalization of it. I've tried to use that as my own motivation to let things go and not be stressed by stuff. And I saw a great T-shirt online recently, and it's a picture of Buddha with his hands out, and underneath it says, "You got to let that shit go, man."
Yeah.
So anyway, so I guess that's what I take from my dad. I never smoked, and did my best to, obviously did my best to stay active, and tried not to put myself in a stressful position, at least in the long term. Knock on wood, I'm still here to talk about it.
Yeah.
I'll be 74 here in a couple of weeks, so. Again, I'm grateful for every day, and put one foot ahead of the other, and we'll be doing that in Tokyo.
Yeah. So you said it sounded like your recovery from the stroke may have been easier or a little more seamless than this recovery from your heart
Yeah.
issue.
Well, yeah, the heart issue, boy, it took a while. I came home and I had friends who would come over and walk me a little bit. The first
Yeah.
couple times it was around the block, and then it got to be a little longer, and then a mile or so, and I got to the point after a couple more weeks, I got to put my running clothes on, and I thought I'm gonna just take take a few steps running, and then I'll walk, and I'll run and I'll walk, and it just built up from there. And
Mhm.
2024, I got in 3 half marathons and the Twin Cities 10 miler in October. So I was
Okay.
real happy with that.
How did those feel?
Great. I actually had pretty good times with the half marathons. The Get in Gear, I ran a 2:15. The
Yeah.
Gary Bjorkland half, I got down to 2:09. And for
Wow.
the Gopher to Badger, I wanted to get down to 2 hours, but I did 2:05, and I thought, you know what, I'm happy with that. I'm real happy
Yeah.
with that. So, anyways, those were, I don't know, I feel like I realized I had recovered pretty well by then, and then I've slowed down since then. I had a real hard time training for London last year, and
Yeah.
my London time was the slowest one I've ever run, and I'm just fine with it. And I'm probably looking at the same thing in Tokyo. Kind of watching how long do I have to do it, and I'll keep myself fairly comfortable. I'll keep plugging along, but we'll just get her done.
Yeah. We'll have to meet because I just want to get it done too. And I've been slowing it down too.
Hmm.
I'll probably finish around 6, 6.5. And they have a 7 hour cutoff. And I
They
hear
do.
they're,
I was so happy to hear that, and
yeah.
so yeah, no, I was a little under 6 hours for London, and with the limited training I did, I felt really happy with that.
Okay. Yeah. And the other thing for Tokyo is I understood that that 7 hour cutoff is the clock cutoff. So it doesn't matter
That's
what time
right.
you start, you have until
That's
that,
right.
but I don't know, like 5 o'clock at night because they have to open the roads.
That's right. That's right. And I understand they're going to have a sag wagon, picking up the rear. And if you don't keep up the pace,
Mm-hmm.
they make you either get off the road or get on the sag wagon. I should say it the other way around. Get on the sag wagon or get off on the sidewalk because the roadways are opening again.
Yeah. So I've
So
been doing sprints on the treadmill,
yeah.
keep my speed up. Yeah. It's when I ran Berlin in 2024. There was another guy I met there from Marathon Tours. We just met in the lobby on the way to the
Uh,
race. And he said that he had a knee injury and he was supposed to run slower, but he didn't know if he could. And so it ended up being awesome. Me and this guy, Richard, ran the whole way together. And because of his knee, I slowed him down. And
mhm.
because he wanted to go faster, he kept me. So it worked out really well.
That is cool. Have you talked to him since then? Have you had any opportunity?
Just texted a little bit, and I am friends with his wife on Facebook.
Uh-huh.
They're He's originally from Britain, but they live in Florida now, and so I'm like, yeah, I should get a hold of him, find out how
Oh,
that
that's
knee
great.
is.
Yeah. Oh, that's fantastic.
Yes,
Interesting people you meet, when you're out running.
yeah. I think in my intro too, I said, "You're not the man you used to be, but you're a better man. No, you're a better man."
Uh-huh.
So in my intro, I'm kind of saying, "You're not the man that you used to be, but you're a better man." Do you agree with that? What do you think?
I think so. I'm different. I've evolved. I'm getting older every day. Of course, I'm going to be, at some point your energy level tapers off just as I don't know, you're retired. You don't work anymore. Different things happen and things change around you. People come and go in your life, and I'm just again grateful for the blessings that I've got, the energy that I still have, and I guess that's all I can say. My loving wife of 50 years, my kids and grandkids, and and friends and all, and so happy that I've had the opportunity to survive the health challenges that I have, and still be an active person.
Hmm. So does your wife go to the doctor regularly?
My wife worked 40 years as a lab assistant, or a lab technician.
Oh, really?
And so
Where?
she's, yeah, here in the Twin Cities, she worked at the U Hospital for a while. She worked at Lakeview Hospital in
Mm-hmm.
Stillwater. She worked at Health East at St. Joe's Hospital for quite a while in St. Paul. So when we go to the doc, she's at my side, and she can talk medical better than I can. And it's kind of interesting. The docs seem to like talking to her because
Mm-hmm.
she does ask the harder questions and stuff that would just slip by other people. Or when they talk to her, she grasps some of the implications of what a layperson like myself would just miss.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. I helping out someone going through their medical treatments. And so my background is genetics and cell biology. And then I had my own biotechnology company, and our specialty was programmed cell death and, our cells living or dying.
Yeah.
And so a lot of our customers would take a biopsy of a tumor, grow it in a petri dish, and then they would add drug A, B, C, D, E, F, G to these different samples. And then they would add my product. And if
Hmm.
the chemo was working and the tumor was dying, it would turn red or green or purple, whatever color we wanted. And they could say, okay, this drug in the petri dish, this drug seems to be working very well. So we should explore
Uh-huh.
that. And so that was kind of my background.
Yeah.
And uh, now I can go to appointments with people and also help them sort out a lot of the medical
Sure.
terminology. I'm not an MD, but I have a solid enough laboratory background
Yeah.
where I can help sort through. And yeah, I feel like I've been really helpful with that.
Hmm. I just read an article recently in the New York Times, I believe it was in the Times, about about the role that genetics play in a person's longevity, and
Mm-hmm.
it's fan. And the article contended that genetics plays a larger portion than we really realize, and that you can take care of yourself or not, and you'll spin that genetic age that you're destined to live to forward or back somewhat. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
you can have some effect on it, but you're largely a product of your genetics.
Mm-hmm.
But that was
Yeah.
fascinating.
Your cells have their own time clock that tells them when to grow, when to divide,
Hmm.
and when to die. And that's controlled by your DNA. And on your DNA, at the ends, is these strands of proteins called telomeres. And every time the cells divide, the telomeres get shorter and shorter and shorter until
Oh.
finally, there's after enough cell divisions, there's no telomeres left, and the cells naturally die. Well, that's the aging process right there.
Hmm.
So the cell doesn't reproduce or act like it used to.
Sure.
So if we can figure out a way
I suppose
to,
that's why we don't heal as quickly and why we get
mm-hmm.
nasty skin and everything as we age because those things aren't
Yeah.
revitalizing like they do when you're in your teens and 20s in your adolescence.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, it's amazing how our bodies work. I mean, you
Yeah.
essentially get a new skeleton every 10 years. You're always
Uh-huh.
remodeling that.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Interesting. So I went and looked up stroke symptoms and heart attack symptoms. And what I found of stroke symptoms, you know, I the things that I kind of knew. I've had old relatives who've had strokes before, and
Yeah.
but the common symptoms are numbness or weakness in the face, or an arm or a leg, or weakness on one side of the body, difficulty speaking or understanding, and trouble seeing in one or both eyes. And man, what I had was just very, very mild. I had a shuffle on my right foot.
Uh-huh.
I was at the Y swimming, and I came out of the Y, and I noticed that my right foot was dragging just the tiniest bit.
Mm-hmm.
And then I went and had breakfast with my brother. I think I mentioned that, and we talked. I didn't have any problem talking or understanding or anything like that. But when I went into the washroom uh, was washing up afterwards, I noticed that my face looked like I was sagging a little bit on the right hand side. Thought, oh, that's
Mm.
weird. and I felt generally kind of crappy. So when I was done with my brother, I had nothing else to do. I thought, I'm going home.
Yeah.
Um, I should probably see a doc over this, but I don't have a doc anywhere nearby. And so, I said goodbye and didn't have anything else to do. I went home. And so home was, a 10-hour drive from Minnesota or from Michigan, the Detroit suburbs, back to St. Paul. So I got home
Mhm.
about 10, 11 p.m. And again, sitting in the car driving wasn't a big deal. It's not, having been born in Detroit,
Mhm.
I learned how to drive with the most aggressive of them. And, so a freeway trip is no big deal.
No.
And, so it wasn't until morning talking with my wife and she said, you look like you got a little droop on the side of your face. And, I said, yeah, I kind of noticed that. And so we started Googling, actually stroke symptoms
Mhm.
and she says you should call a nurse for the health program. And so I called the nurse and described what was going on. She says you got to get in right now. So I did. I
Yeah.
went down to the ER and they checked me in and gave me ran through some tests and things and I ended up staying overnight there. They determined that I did have a stroke and um, took an MRI and different things and then started putting me on statins and things. And I don't know, but it maybe took some energy out of me for a couple of weeks or so, but really wasn't, again, really wasn't all that big a deal. And I suppose that's probably because it was a minor stroke. Fortunately, it was
Mhm.
only as minor as it was.
Yeah. So, you said it was an ischemic attack. So there
That's
are a
right.
couple of different kinds of strokes. The ischemia stroke is kind of where you may have a blood clot goes into your brain, and then it causes a
Hmm.
lack of blood
Hmm.
flow, a lack of oxygen, and
Right.
then your brain starts to die. And then there's where you
The
might actually
hem
have a bleed in the brain.
Right, the hemorrhagic.
Yeah, you get too much blood. So it's a hemorrhagic stroke, kind of a
Yep.
sudden blood burst. And then there's other little things called the TIA, the transient ischemic attack.
Hmm.
And those are pretty ominous. And those, there's like little tiny strokes.
Uh-huh.
You may not really notice it. You still kind of function. In fact, that's what my mom died of. And she
Is
was
that right?
84, 85. Yeah. And her mom died of the same thing, where in the last year of her life, she started having these little TIAs, these transient ischemic attacks,
Hmm.
and she would fall down. But she never hurt herself. And,
Yeah.
it was kind of like a little blackout and she'd be
Boy, in the
okay.
80s, that's fortunate.
Mm-hmm.
They tell us, don't fall down, however you can avoid it. The older you
Mm-hmm.
get, the more perilous it is to fall down. You break a bone and,
I know.
all that.
Yeah. So then eventually she did get a walker. And then at one
Hmm.
point, well, in the end, she had a much bigger stroke. And that's what took her
Uh-huh.
out. So we
Yeah.
had a kind of a year to prepare and we're expecting it. And fortunately, we were spending more time with her. But back to you, you
Hmm.
had this stroke and it was really unexpected out of the blue, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Now, my dad had had strokes, and I mentioned before he died in his early 50s, or at age 53.
Mm-hmm.
And he'd had a heart attack at 43, a couple of them within a month. But then
Wow.
4 years later, he had an aneurysm, which is
Mm-hmm.
essentially a hemorrhagic stroke, is my understanding.
Yes.
And so they did brain surgery, or they cut him open and repaired the bleed and patched him back up. He was back at work within a week and looking like Frankenstein. Um, and then maybe 4 years after that, he had a stroke, and it was a major stroke. It
Mhm.
paralyzed his right side, and it took him a year or more to recover. And in a year and a half after that stroke, he had the major blow up that took his life. Essentially, another big bleed out
Wow.
at the same spot. So, having a stroke, I guess, surprised me, but in terms of my family history, my dad, it didn't shock me, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
I was very pleased that it was as limited and, minor as it was, and knock on wood, I haven't had any issues since.
Were you kind of walking on tippy toes for a while after that? Very careful?
Oh, I don't know. They put me on a statin, and the
Yeah.
statin was, they said it was like a cannon load of statin, and
They're going to get you.
yeah, yeah, but they wanted to do that to kind of clean me out a bit, and then
Mm-hmm.
we between the doctors and I, we reduced the statin down significantly to the point where it didn't seem to affect me anymore. But heavy statin load will sap your energy,
Mm-hmm.
and by cutting it back, I got back to a regular kind of a level of activity, and the following year ran a couple of marathons and stuff, and so
Oh, that's great.
things did go well.
That's great. That's great that you had such a good outcome, a good recovery from this.
That's for sure.
So, for other people out there, if you're concerned you're having a stroke or you have some of these symptoms, I'm going to read some of these. It's the acronym BEFAST, BEFAST, for some common signs of a stroke. And that is the B is balance loss. You feel a little tippy, you're losing your balance. E is that you have changes in your eyesight where, you might have a little blurry vision. And that F is the face drooping. And that's what Tom
Ah,
experienced. He said with the right side of your face.
yep,
And then A is arm weakness. But also, Tom, you had your foot weakness, your leg weakness too.
yeah, yeah.
And S is for speech difficulty. And you said you didn't really have
Didn't
that.
really notice any of that.
No, you're talking to your brother just fine.
Yeah,
And then the T means it's time to call 911. So
yeah.
BEFAST, be fast, balance
Hmm.
lost, eyesight change, face drooping, arm weakness, speech difficulty, and then time to call 911. So yeah, people
So yeah,
have, a loss of coordination, have different severities of these symptoms like you experienced.
sure. Yeah, no, and knock on wood, I feel very fortunate that it wasn't any more severe than it was, and that my waiting didn't have any serious consequences. But they let me know it was not a wise move to drive home with symptoms like that. But it's what I did, and I'm here to talk about it. So maybe
Yeah,
live and learn.
and you mentioned it with all the issues that you've had. Your wife is the one who's encouraging you to go to the doctor.
That's right.
Married men live longer than single men, and that is one of the reasons why
Yeah,
there's
yeah,
somebody looking out for them.
sure.
I guess she decided she wanted 50 more years with you, huh?
Right. So far, so good.
So far, so good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, and high blood. I'm looking at another thing. High blood pressure is another classic stroke risk, anyway. And
Hmm.
in the aftermath of that, they put me on statins and a high blood pressure med, and told me that high blood pressure was critical to avoiding recurrence. And so I, bought a blood pressure cuff and have kept track of my blood pressure all along. And
Okay.
mentioned before that running is a real good cure for if I have a blood pressure spike. If I'm feeling tense or anything, I can go for a run and my blood pressure comes down very significantly.
Yeah, I can tell that too. It seems odd to me that running actually relaxes me.
Hmm.
I tend to be really hold my tend to hold tense in my neck.
Uh-huh.
I tend to hold my tension in my neck, so my neck will get kind of tense. And
Yeah.
if I go for a run, I'll shake out my arms and my head, and eventually it kind of loosens up. It's
Hmm.
great.
Yeah. No, I find that running is I mean, and sometimes a cure-all. I've had problems with my lower back on occasion, and I'll go out and run a few miles, and it loosens up my lower back.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not a permanent solution, but it can relax things and help in the very short term. I still have to do my exercises and things to maintain my strength back there, but a quick run will really help a lot of times.
Yeah. And I started running because running was a warm up for other
Uh-huh.
activities, like weightlifting. And so I wonder if
Okay.
a short run kind of acts that way too. It's like just enough of a little warm up to get you going. You don't
Hmm.
have to go out a long way, do you?
No, no,
Yeah.
no. I would say within a half mile, things are, you're kind of finding your mojo or getting, finding the groove, and things are going well. And
Mhm. I mean, that's just a short enough run where you don't even really have to change your clothes.
you're right.
Just go out there and
Well,
run it, run in your loafers.
yeah. Then I looked up, there's a good segue here. I looked up heart attack symptoms, and
So let's segue into that as well.
yeah.
So yeah, with a heart attack, you also had some. I think you had some pretty classic symptoms of a heart attack. Can you talk about that, please?
Well, I'm not sure if I did or not. When I look through the common symptoms here, it's chest pain. Never had any of that. Shortness of breath? Not really. Pain in other areas? No. Cold sweat? No. Nausea or vomiting? No. Lightheaded or dizziness? No. But extreme fatigue? Bingo.
Uh huh.
I had been finding myself just more and more tired. And the chart I'm reading from says extreme fatigue is unexplained tiredness, especially in women. So I don't know
Mm.
why that would be gender specific, but I found that I was unable to go out and run for more than, you know, 200 to 400 yards or so without stopping and walking. And
Mm.
I was trying to train for grandma's half marathon. I think it was in 2022, a handful of years ago. And yeah, I couldn't get a half a mile in without stopping to walk, and realized, this isn't quite right. And this kind of went on, for about another year or so before I went and got the cardio stress test, and and then dragged into the ER and had my procedure, my bypasses. But the fatigue is really and that isn't the thing that ended up flagging the issue for us.
Fatigue. So you were feeling kind of tired and run down for a year.
Yeah. Oh, and napping, I
Yeah.
would nap a couple times a day at least. And I've always been an avid napper. I've always loved my naps since I was
Uh-huh.
probably in my 30s, young adult. But
Yeah.
I I was doing a couple, three naps a day. And in hindsight now, that's, I still get my naps in, but I don't do them like that.
Yeah.
So that was a sign as well.
I wonder if that helped uh, keep you in this world as well because you were getting that rest.
Maybe so. Maybe so. I can't say why. Even when I would go out and run, I didn't have pain or anything, but it was just sort of fatigue, and I don't have it in me today.
Uh
And
huh.
my wife would say, what's the matter? Is it your lungs? Is it your legs? Or what? I said, I don't know. It just, I would go and feel like, oh, I got to stop and walk a little bit. So it sure wasn't
Uh
pain or anything. It was just a feeling of I'm spent. I got to walk a minute, and
huh.
then start up again, and 100 more yards, and then I got to walk. So
Yeah.
so the signs were there, and I just had to finally one day realize what it was, or head to the doc and look for an explanation. And boy, oh boy, I'm glad I got it when I did.
Wow. If you hadn't been in as good a shape, like if you had just been like a couch potato, like were you saying to yourself, "Oh, this is just me getting older"?
Uh, you know, there was a certain element of that.
Mm-hmm.
Since I've come back running after the heart procedure and all, I had some pretty good half marathon times. They were comparable to probably the couple years before I had the procedure, but in the last year or so, I've kind of slowed down some more, and I'm good with it. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so I don't know. Another thing too that's occurred to me lately is that I've said to my wife and my kids and stuff, if I fall down and die running, don't cry too long. It's it's the way I'd like to go. Um, I'd rather die with my boots on than have an extended illness or an extended slide.
Yeah.
And I think they kind of appreciate it, even though we're not expecting that to happen anytime soon. But who knows?
Yeah. I hope that doesn't happen.
Right.
I know I tell my husband, well, if I end up dying doing some activity like running or skiing,
Hmm.
you know, just know that if I had known that was going to happen, I would have done something different that day.
Sure.
You know, kind of like a little bit of the opposite of you. Yes, I'm dying, doing something I love, but on the other
Yeah.
hand, it or
No, that's a
probably going to
good point.
be
I mean, I don't think I would walk into it expecting to,
no,
to
no.
meet my Waterloo. But I did have a friend though, who's a friend of a friend. I don't know if you know Dennis Black in Stillwater, but he had a
No.
friend who he had a friend who had some heart issues and continued running even at the against the advice of his doctor. And
Wow.
he maybe I don't know if he maybe got the same advice that I did from my doc, who said, "You're not the same man you used to be." But he,
Hmm.
this guy kept running, and he would get chest pains during a race and ignore them. And one
Yeah.
race, he died. He had the
Yeah.
big one, and that was that. But he had
Yeah.
said to people too, I'm not going to stop running. This is how I want to live my life, and if that's the way it ends, then so be it. And for him, that's what happened,
You always have a choice,
for sure.
and if that's how you want to manage your health, then
Hmm.
you are free to do that. And
For
some
sure.
some people express that with, do they take their medications or not take their medications because the side effects are worse
Hmm.
than whatever they're trying to treat.
Yeah, that's the truth. There are times when the side effects of some of these meds do make you tired. In fact, I had a visit with my cardiologist, second year now. It was last October, and they took me off of a one of the drugs that it was called metoprolol. And
Hmm.
metoprolol is it slows down your heart rate.
Uh-huh.
And in fact, I complained to the doc. I was still pretty um, fatigued at times, and so my being that the blood pressure was under control, the doc says we'll take you off the metoprolol, and that helped.
Uh-huh.
After a couple 3 weeks, I started feeling somewhat more energetic. So it was really encouraging that I guess, and she said, this is evidence that your heart has healed fairly well from all
Hmm.
of this, and we'll take you off the metoprolol, and if you need to call me, you got my number. If there are any problems with it, we'll deal with it. But for the time being, let's
Hmm.
try going off metoprolol and see where that goes.
So in general, healing from other injuries takes what, about 6 or 8 weeks or something? And you said after your heart
Yeah,
procedure, they got you out of bed the next day.
right.
Have you ever really gotten kind of a, you're good to go, or take it easy, or?
You know, I guess I did ask at the first anniversary with the cardiologist, is it okay to keep running? And they said, yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
And and maybe through the discussions, they realized I'm not going to push myself beyond pain or anything.
Hmm.
But they seem to have faith that I would know if I needed to stop or slow down, or I kind of know my limits. And again, I'm slowing down. I'm comfortable. I'm good with it, but I'm not good with stopping the activity altogether.
Because you said one of the doctors told you you're not the man you used to be. Was that after your stroke or your?
Yeah, that was after my stroke, and
Yeah. So what happened there? What was that guy?
I was told that I needed to find a primary care doc, which I had had once, and then the guy went to a different practice, and also I had nobody at the time. And so I started searching for a primary care doc, and I found a guy whose profile said he was a soccer player, and I thought, yeah, I want somebody active who can identify with, an older adult wanting to be
Hmm.
active, physically active. And so I went to see the guy and asked him about his soccer playing, and he said, I don't do that so much anymore. I don't have time. And he looked like it. He was
Uh-huh.
pretty out of shape and a bit overweight and all. But in the course of the conversation, I had talked about running marathons and how I intended to continue doing that if I could. He says, I don't think that's a good idea. He says, you're not the man you used to be.
No.
And I bristled at
Yeah.
that. I thought, you're not the doc I want to have,
Uh-huh.
so and I didn't realize it right then. I went home and, brooded a little
Hmm.
bit and decided I got to find a different doc. And I did. And I went and found, again, another doc whose profile said he was a soccer player. And this guy was, in his mid late 30s and very fit and looked like he played soccer the prior weekend, maybe. And he said, I said, I've got to, I'm active and I want to continue to be active despite the stroke and all that. And I says, can you work with me on that kind of a basis? And he says, yeah, I'm very comfortable with that. And says, I think your general activity is really key to your good health. And I
Hmm.
thought, okay, this is more like the philosophy that I want to have in a healthcare provider.
Yeah.
And it's been great. This doc is the primary care doc, so he's just the one you stop in and get your prescriptions updated and all, and a general physical every year. But no, it's that's been great. He's told me I'm one of his healthiest patients,
Yeah.
and I kind of laugh and smile at that. I mean, it's all in different
Yeah.
levels to that kind of an opinion, but
Yeah, that's
you know,
great. Yeah, because some people will say going through an experience like that is a life changing. You have your life before that, which for you would be, you know,
sure,
you had your running life first, you had a stroke, and then you recovered from that,
hmm,
doing pretty good, getting your mojo back,
yeah,
because you said running was always a pretty big part of your identity. And then to
yeah,
have a heart issue and then, trying to recover with that, and the doctor telling you, oh, you're never going to go back to how you used to be. You're not going to be that guy anymore.
uh-huh,
But you also don't have to be a couch potato.
right,
I think for a lot of men, and maybe it's the one who aren't quite so active, and they don't realize how vulnerable they feel having a heart issue like that. Like all of a sudden, for them and for you, it's kind of a big surprise. And then it takes a lot out of you to recover. And,
sure,
men are supposed to be, big and strong and eat your spinach and do all this stuff. And then all of a sudden you have this big problem where you have to have people help you, and you can't
yeah,
lift 10 pounds and you're not allowed to drive for 6 or 8 weeks.
yeah,
And, you know, you went out for walks with your friends, which was something that you weren't doing before. You could always go out by
right,
yourself. And
that's right,
so think about your sense of identity, that having to kind of
sure,
recreate yourself.
yeah, yeah. Those weeks after the bypass surgery, when I was dependent on friends to come over and walk me around and stuff, it just made me so grateful for having friends to come over and do that, and for
Mhm.
having the opportunity to work physically work to get better and get more energetic. And I guess laying there in the hospital that week I was there on my back. I don't know, the whole atmosphere there just made you feel grateful for so many things,
Mhm.
for the talented medical help down at Mayo and the nursing staff who were so kind and considerate and stuff, and the doctor who was so expert, and it just made me resolve to be grateful every day. And I still try to do that. I forget every day, but I try to be
Yeah.
appreciative and thankful for what I've got.
Yeah. Here in Minnesota, we live within 100 miles of the best medical care in the entire world.
Isn't that the case?
uh, you know, we had Dr. Lilyhammer and Dr. Nigerian at the University of Minnesota who helped
Yeah,
develop these revolutionary procedures and the heart lung bypass machine,
yeah,
and just at the forefront of all of this research, which is why it's so important to support that kind of cause,
for
to
sure.
support research.
Yep.
That's amazing. Oh, has your diet changed at all throughout these big events in your life?
Boy, that's a real good question. My wife has been, she cooks, and I would have a very different, probably body shape and everything if I had to cook on my own. She's been very health conscious for a long time, but since the stroke, we've really gotten into, we eat almost no red meat. Probably we fish a couple times a week, and chicken otherwise, or vegetarian, beans and lentils and that kind of stuff. And we've gotten so we just love that kind of diet. And so when I had the heart issues, one of the things that they told us is, oh, you've got to eat healthy. And so when we look at their lists of the things that you should eat or how your diet should be, you're like, yeah, we're there.
Great.
Yeah. So it's been, it was sort of an evolution to get into real good eating habits, but we're to the point where we really like that. It's hard to eat out at times because the restaurant fare isn't as healthy in places as you'd like it to be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I generally try to avoid fat. And
Yeah.
my husband is a meat and potatoes guy.
Uh-huh.
And I don't cook with butter. I steam all my vegetables. And
Mm-hmm.
that's not his version of cooking. He says steaming a
Yeah.
vegetable is not cooking. I'm like, yes, it is. I like it.
Yeah, it is. Oh,
It
yeah.
is. It is. But he always makes, a square meal. You have the meat, some protein, you have a green or colorful vegetable, and you have some carbohydrates with it. And he's
Mm-hmm.
very good about, 3 meals a day. And I snack throughout the day. So I'll have smaller meals more often. And then, and usually lunch is my big meal. And for him, it's
Uh-huh.
dinner. So I've had to make some compromises with that.
We used to have like a New York sirloin once a week or so, and no more. We do that once a year, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
So very little to no red meat. We were out to somebody's home last night for a birthday party actually it was, for two of our granddaughters. The twins turned 8, and we went to their other grandparents' house and had sloppy joes for dinner. And realized, no, we don't usually eat sloppy joes. They tasted great, but
Yep.
not on our, the red meat's not part of our diet on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah. And I've also been trying to eat a lot more fish too.
Mm-hmm.
And my husband is really good about cooking that.
Yeah, no, I love cooking salmon on the grill.
Yeah.
We've got a good seafood market up the street from us, and we know we're typical retirees. We go up there on senior day and get our discount and enjoy eating well for a good price.
I love it. Yes. Yeah. It seems when you talk to a retired person, they always tell you about some fabulous deal,
That's right.
where to go. And we talking about interesting people. That's definitely been one thing I didn't even imagine when I started running is the collective human nature that you meet of all these people. That's why
Yeah.
I started this podcast. Well, to raise money for the charity. But then I was
Mhm.
like, I meet all these amazing people in these marathons, and sometimes it's only for 15 minutes. Or with Richard, it was like 6 hours of hanging out
Mhm.
together, and it was
Yeah.
great.
That reminds me of something that I encounter frequently over and over the years is when I meet somebody new. If we find out that we have running in common, oh my gosh, that just opens up the conversation, and things become so animated so quickly. And and my wife laughs about it, laughs and rolls her eyes and stuff, but it's really true.
Yeah.
It's such a, I don't know, it's such a commonality or something so important that you have in common with somebody,
Hmm.
and you both relate to, and yeah, it's just great.
I I think it's because it's hard. It's a shared experience that's hard, but
Hmm.
nobody can do it for you.
That's
y-
for sure.
You know, and so I think we kind of have this community spirit that even though I can't physically do it for you, I'd like to support you somehow.
Yeah,
Because if you can do it, then maybe I can do it too.
yeah, yeah. And that reminds me too about how personal it is to every individual.
Yes.
I can talk about how I ran this or that time, but it's not to say that that's great compared to anybody else. I'm running my own circumstances. You might have your circumstances where you're, like your friend Richard, has got a bum knee. He's out there and, hopping along. He probably runs harder with that bum knee than other people do who are not so afflicted. And
Yeah. Yep.
so, yeah, it's all very personal and there isn't, I don't think there's a bad run unless, I just don't think there's a bad run.
Hmm.
I used to tell we talked about Don Wright.
I was
Um,
just going to ask you who are your heroes? Who motivated you to?
Boy,
Who motivates you?
I think of a few heroes. Mentioned Doug Curtis, my high school friend. He
Yeah.
walked on to our team as a junior. He never lost a race, and
Wow.
went on to run in college and started running marathons. As an adult, and he had a record for running the most sub 2:20 marathons, 2 hour 20 minutes. And
Wow.
when he got into his, I, I don't know exactly, into his 30s, I guess, and those became unattainable.
Hmm.
He was even into his 40s, but he adjusted his goal, and his goal then was to be the world record holder for the number of sub 3 hour marathons. And if I'm not mistaken, he's probably got a web page, but I think he's in close to 200, give or take, marathons under 3 hours. And
Wow.
just a machine. And
Yeah.
another hero of mine, though, is Mary Croft, who you know
Yes.
we talked about. And again, she too, just a long-term runner, and just a fun person to talk to and be around, so positive and everything. And then the third one would be Don Wright. And Don
Yeah.
Wright, we lost him a couple of months ago, on December 17th, I think it was. He passed away from
Yeah.
multiple myeloma. And but I met Don in my earlier days with the Stillwater Running Group, and
Hmm.
Don had worked at 3M. He was working at 3M at the time. He was an engineer and a lawyer by training, but he was new to running, and he was trying to get healthy and wasn't sure he could run the whole 5 miles. So he'd have his wife drop him off 2 miles into the 5 mile course. And so he would run so that he could get back in time with everybody else. And, running with a group like that's a real social thing. And so, Don trained and trained, and he ran his first marathon. And shortly after that, he was diagnosed with multiple myeloma, which is
Wow.
leukemia, essentially, a bone cancer.
Hmm.
And my father-in-law, strangely enough, was uh, afflicted with it at the same time. And my father-in-law, great guy that he was gone within about 18 months, passed away.
Hmm.
And um, Don was aggressive in his grappling with this, and he researched and tried different medicines and experimental drugs and stuff, through doctors and programs that he found.
Hmm.
And Don went, I believe it was 22 years with multiple myeloma, and he was a poster child, I think, for medical research, and
Yeah.
had been invited to seminars to speak and stuff as this wunderkind of
Hmm.
medicine. And but
Yeah.
the kindest and most humble person I've ever met, and curious, and just a very fun guy to be around. And so,
Uh,
I will always have a soft spot in my heart for Don. I always smile when his name comes up.
yeah. And he ran many marathons after his diagnosis during
There
that
we go.
22
Yeah,
years.
Don
Yeah.
ended up running all 50 states, and he ran 100
Yeah.
marathons. And he too, like I am now, he was seeking out the marathons that had, he was watching what's the cutoff time for this,
Yeah.
because we end up slowing down. Don was 80, 82 or 3, I believe, um,
Wow.
84 when he died. And I think his last marathon, it was probably, might have been half a dozen years ago. He was into his, mid 70s and still running them. And
Hmm.
yeah, but yeah, what a guy.
Yeah. Well, and that's the reason why I started this charity is, you need the research to find the cures. There's a lot of charities out there that will help you pay your medical bills or maybe help you pay your mortgage. But without the background research going on in the laboratory,
Yeah.
you won't have those cures. And that's expensive. And I know with a lot of children's cancers, especially some leukemias, they have a higher cure rate than adult cancers because parents will do anything to save their children. And so they'll enroll them in more clinical
Mhm.
trials and they'll do more aggressive, riskier things for the children. And sometimes adults are a little scared by that, or I don't want to say they're not as motivated, but it seems that the children definitely have higher cure rates. And maybe they're just a
Yeah.
little more resilient.
Interesting.
Maybe they can take the drugs, handle the drugs a little differently.
Hmm.
But I'm glad that he was able to keep going with some cures.
That's for sure. For
Because
sure.
the more cures are out there, there's a million reasons why people get different cancers. And so if you can understand the biochemistry of one cancer, maybe you can develop a drug for that. And that drug might impact other cancers as well.
And research and stuff happens all the time, and techniques change and all. I have a friend who's he's a veterinary surgeon, or is retired now, but talked about surgical techniques over his career, and
Mm-hmm.
he specialized in doing ACLs on dogs and cats, and
Mm-hmm.
but he said that the surgical techniques changed a few times over during his career, and so it research and practice and all that lead things to evolve in ways that
Yes.
sometimes you don't expect. So
Yes.
yeah, no, but it's good we got to keep encouraging that that moving forward and that evolution.
Yeah. So if people out there are concerned that budgets are being cut, like I am, you know,
Yeah.
we're doing something about it. You can
Hmm.
donate to my charity. You can go online at my website at unstoppablestoriesthatmove.com, or you can mail me a check to P.O. Box 12 in Afton, Minnesota, 55001. so, so thanks, Tom, for that nice segue there. I'm trying to ask for donations. I'm not a professional fundraiser, so I got to ask.
Sure. We Midwesterners have to have to buck up and get used to asking for what we want sometimes. Not
Yeah.
be not
Yeah.
be so timid. But anyway, well, good. What's the
Um,
name of your charity, Alan?
Technically, I call it the SA Head Fund for Medical Research, but I think
Hmm.
with so many people donating, I think I have to do a DBA as unstoppable.
Uh-huh.
So that's just a little
Cool.
business glitch I'm running into
Uh-huh.
as I'm
No, it's
starting this.
evolution. It's just evolution.
It's evolution and it's working, and people
Oh,
are
that's great.
donating, and I'm
Hmm.
really I'm really encouraged, and it's been fun talking to people, and I know it will make a difference. Other than Tokyo, what's next for you? What's
That's
what's
a
on your
great
bucket
question.
list? What do you want to do?
I may do Sydney. Like I said, my daughter, my middle child, and her husband
Oh,
and two kids moved to Adelaide, Australia,
oh,
just 2.5 weeks ago.
wow.
And yeah, and
What brought them
so
there?
they were unsettled by the last election and politics and things in general, and we didn't think they'd follow through. They said that if things didn't go well, that they were going to leave the country. I thought, okay, come on, kind of rolled our eyes. And
Right.
by golly, they did. In March last year, they started doing some looking, and in July last year, they took a trip, all four of them, down to Australia and started scouting around, and they found a place, the town of Adelaide, that they liked. They said there's a lot of similarities to the Twin Cities.
Mm-hmm.
And so then my son-in-law Andy went back there in November for the month, and he rented a house and bought a car and found the IKEA store, and started buying bedroom furniture and stuff, so they had a place to sleep when they got there, and they flew down there on the 12th of January, and
Wow,
yeah, and so I mean our hearts are torn out by them leaving, because we've been watching those little kids for since they were born. They just live a couple of miles from us here, and yeah,
six
and
grandkids. You said
mhm.
Two from each kid.
Two from each of my kids. You're right. And so now we're talking to them on Zoom every couple of days, and that's worked out well.
Uh-huh.
That eases the pain a bunch when you can still see them, and they're doing well.
So did they get jobs down there?
They are working on it right now. So,
Okay.
if you ask me a yes no for a yes no answer, no, not yet. But he's an elementary school teacher, and Karen is a pharmacist, and
Mm-hmm.
they got work visas down there because they are in professions that are in need
Okay.
locally there. So they've been working on transferring their certifications and their professional certifications and all that, and so this is part of the plan. They planned that they would perhaps be several weeks, maybe a month or two before they actually got paychecks. So
Wow. Wow.
that's where it's at.
Wow. That's a pretty brave move on their
I
part.
agree. I agree.
Talk about a fun adventure.
Yeah, and unstoppable too. I guess they're
Yeah.
they're going for it.
Yeah. You only live once. The
That's
YOLO.
right.
I got a
You
serious
know,
case of YOLO and FOMO, the fear of missing out.
yeah.
We talk a lot about Tokyo. Well, we were in Japan 2 years ago to go skiing, and there's a lot of opportunities to move there. So what we
No
learned
kidding.
is that the Japanese economy is contracting a little bit, and there are 600,000 abandoned farmhouses outside the city because the families are getting smaller and there's no kids to take over the farm, and the kids are moving to the city where they want jobs. And all these old family farms that the neighbors are taking care of, and now the neighbors are elderly too. And there's also something about they bury their ancestors on their property, and if there's any ancestors there, everybody in the family has to agree if they're going to sell. So they've been working on relocating all these cemeteries to like a central cemetery, and then inviting people in to live in these houses for 6 months. So if you want to change and you can work remotely, you could go work in Japan for 6 months and help take care of houses.
Wow. It reminded me a little bit of Italy, where you can go and buy a house for $1.
Oh, wow, really?
Yeah, and the agreement there is that you rehab the house and all,
Yeah.
but the same thing's happening. The countryside is aging and depopulating eventually, and so they're concerned about population decline, and trying to
Yeah.
open things up for people who would be interested in something like that.
Yeah. And Japan has traditionally been pretty closed as far as immigrants, outside the Japanese culture coming in. So they're trying to open that up a little more.
Yeah, no, that surprises me. I hadn't heard of that before.
Yeah, I love Japan. It was so clean. Everybody's so nice and orderly.
Well, I'm sure looking forward to experiencing that. This is our first trip over, and yeah, lots to learn.
I decided that Japan is like the number one culture in the world. Like,
Uh-huh.
they just got it, kind of everything figured out. Like if everybody could be as nice as that, it'd be
Uh-huh.
good. Of course, I know they have their problems beneath the surface and all of that, but
Everywhere does. You can't get
yeah,
away from that.
something to aspire to.
Yep.
It's been great talking to you. I am so grateful
Well, likewise.
that you have been able to recover, move on, rebuild your life after these two really scary and traumatic events. I mean, they happen to a lot of people, and they may say, oh, it's pretty common and doctors do this all the time,
Mhm.
trying to reassure you. But when it happens to you, it's a big deal. And,
Mhm. Sure.
that is just, I think it's soul shaking with some of those things, because it just kind of foundation away of who you were. But
It sure gives you an appreciation for some of the more mundane things in life, some of the mundane but really good and great things in life, kindness and stuff that you find around you.
I love that.
I truly I try to be grateful every day and try to share some kindness, maybe pay something forward whenever I've got an opportunity.
Yes, pay it forward when you can. Got two final questions for you. And your attitude and recovery is just inspiring. And of course, We'd like people to donate to medical research if they've been moved by your story. And, donate online, unstoppablestoriesthatmove.com, or check to P.O. Box 12, Afton, Minnesota, 55001. My final two questions. Running is always about more than just running. What's your bigger purpose for running?
Bigger purpose for running. Wow. It's, I guess it's to stay grounded, to stay healthy, to stay grounded, and to be here for my loved ones as long as I can be, and as long as I can be helpful to them.
Wow. So to be here for the people around you, so you can contribute and help take care of them.
Right. Relatives, friends, and even strangers. If you can, share kindness, that's what this world is all about.
Mm-hmm.
And I've come to realize too, we've done a little genealogical research, and I feel like we are but a cog in the long wheel of evolution here. And
Mm-hmm.
I see so much in my grandkids that remind me of myself and my siblings and my parents. And I realize doing genealogy, I see pictures of people who are my ancestors, and you can see family resemblance. And going through life, I realize, we're just but a strand in a long continuum here. And I guess I want to make sure that my contribution in this process is positive and as meaningful as it can be.
Oh, I love that. A positive and meaningful contribution. Yeah. That is what it takes to make the world a better place.
I agree. Couldn't agree more.
Okay. And my final question to you, Tom, is what makes you unstoppable?
I'm unstoppable because I learned to set goals and take small steps. Small steps are big steps, but take steps to get there. And if you start taking the steps, you will get there. I've told that to students. I've done it myself. When we lived in Stillwater, we lived in an ancient house that was built in 1874,
Mm-hmm.
and there was a open attic in the top. The house is a long story that I won't get into, but my two girls were sharing a small bedroom, and I had promised them we were going to build 2 bedrooms and a bathroom on this 3rd floor. And so I went up there, and I was just kind of overwhelmed. Where do I even start? But I realized, I went up there one day and said, I got to just start putting 2x4s up and start making some walls and make this happen. And I thought, I don't know how I'm going to get it all done, but I know where I'll start, and I'll just keep doing a little bit at a time. And it took me about 3 years, put walls in, kind of figured out what made sense for the bedrooms up under the eaves and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Got a bathroom in, plumbed it, and ran electric, and had some stuff done, but most of it myself, put carpeting down, and the girls were very happy to move in there and have their own bedrooms. So, again, the point of it was you got a big project. You can start by nibbling away at it, and the more you nibble at it, the more you'll get done. Heard it called the Swiss cheese approach one time too. You just nibble holes in it, and at some point you got so many holes that the whole thing, whole thing collapses. Essentially, you're done. So yeah. So I guess it's take small steps, and that's positive momentum. And if you've got your goals and you aim there, you're going to get there.
Thanks for tuning into this episode. If this story hits home, please share it with your friends. Subscribe. Support the podcast. Leave a review. Sign up for the Unstoppable newsletter, or send me a message. I would really love to hear from you. And if you want to do something even bigger, donate now. Support our mission to raise $1 million for medical research. You can donate online at unstoppablestoriesthatmove.com, or mail a check to P.O. Box 12, Afton, Minnesota, 55001, USA. We can't get there without help from listeners like you. Together, we can save lives. I'm your host, Sally Hed Dahlquist. Thanks again for listening, and keep moving forward.